God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege, and this is the Protege program. Welcome to the weekend. It is here at long last. I am ready to take a couple of days off. I hope that you are too. Most of all, though, I hope you enjoy this video, and when we get to the end, I hope you leave a like and subscribe. So this is the story that most of the comments are going to be coming from. Business Insider headline: 2 former presidents from both parties blast the state of American politics in unprecedented day. But I don't want to start with that. I want to start with this picture that Drudge Report decided needed to go. It makes me laugh and cringe every time I see it. It's like, I think it took me a long time to figure this out, but I'm pretty sure that what it is it's supposed to be from left to right, like Bush transitioning into Obama. But at my first glance, I thought someone put Bush in blackface. It took me so long to figure out, wait, no, the right ear is not the same as the left ear. The right eye is not the same as the left eye. The left side of the nose is not even the same as the right side of the nose. And same for the mouth. It looks like someone tried to mash Bush and Obama together, and it just didn't quite make it out of the uncanny valley. So I just wanted to show that to you because I got a huge kick out of this picture before we get into the actual story. Now, before I get into the statements that were made by Presidents Bush and Obama, I want to acknowledge that it is purely traditional that former presidents do not comment on the policies and actions of their successors. There is nothing in the Constitution that says presidents have to do this. There's nothing in legal code that says former presidents have to do this. It's pure tradition. It is purely presidential, if you will. And ever since Trump, well, really, since before the primaries ended last year, the left has been talking about how unpresidential Donald Trump is. They've really been screeching about it ever since the general election got started, and everybody was expecting, Trump needs to now pivot to the general election, and he needs to be more presidential, and he needs to do, and I don't know why I did a Trump impersonation for that. But they've been screeching about tradition and presidentialism. Yes, I just now made that word up. To criticize Trump. And what happens next is the most untraditional, unpresidentialism thing that has happened with presidents in recent memory, or for my memory at least. You would think that the left would have criticized at least President Bush for being this unpresidential. But of course, you can imagine my shock that that the media has not been critical of these presidents. Now, the headline here is that they blast the state of American politics. Really, they are criticizing, not in so many words, the current president. Now, we're going to cite 2 stories on Bush's statements because Business Insider didn't get one particular line that I want to make comment on. But first, let's look at this first one that they decided to highlight. President Bush calls out bigotry, which is not code for, but is specifically lefty speak. They have their own language. I've decided leftists have their own language. I'm calling it, I don't know what, leftish. Yeah, lefty. I think leftish. Yeah, leftish. That's what, like English or Spanish, Swedish. Leftish is a new language that only the far left speaks. So when someone, especially someone on the left, calls out bigotry, they're using the leftish word for Christians and people that are Christians specifically, but in general, people that are against the sexual liberation thing. And so Bush says In recent decades, public confidence in our institution has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed in the face of obvious and pressing needs. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Discontent deepened and sharpened partisan conflicts. Bigotry seems emboldened. Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication. So remember, whenever you read a paragraph like this, you don't even have to know that it's from George W. Bush to know that this is all in leftish. This is not in the English language at all. These are all leftish words that all have their own specific meaning. So when he says public confidence in our institutions has declined, he means we've lost control over the public at large to a certain degree. The government no longer has the kind of control that we used to exert over the public, such that when we said something, they just believed it. When we did something, they just took it for granted that we were doing what was best for them. And that's really why, in real speak now, why public confidence has declined is because we perceive that the government is not doing what's in our best interest. We perceive that when governments of Europe in particular import massive amounts of immigrants that do not share the culture that they're being imported into, and that in some cases actively not just speak but act with malicious intent towards those governments, towards those peoples, we see that as not being in the best interest of the people. Our governing class has been paralyzed in the face of obvious and pressing needs. That's leftish for some of the governing people are trying to work in the interest of the people, which we're not interested in doing. Therefore, we're not getting things done. Remember, getting things done isn't real talk for doing things that you have been elected to do. That's real talk for doing things, doing the left's things in particular, but doing things in general. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Now, there's not a lot of leftish in that sentence. There's a little bit in the sense that, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, that type of thing. But in real speak, when we say the American dream of upward mobility is out of reach for some who have left behind in a changing economy, the blue-collar American worker is being largely left behind as factories get shut down, as energy gets squashed by a heavy-handed government. That is, in real talk, people being left behind, people being left out of upward mobility. So perhaps there is some not leftish in there, but I highly doubt that given the amount of leftish that is in this paragraph. Discontent deepened and sharpened partisan conflicts. That's leftish for the people are thinking too much. They're not being content with the life that we're giving them. Therefore, they're getting upset at us, and we need to stop that. We need them to stop doing that. Bigotry seems emboldened. Again, bigotry is leftish for Christianity and anti-sex liberationism. Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication. And again, that is leftish for the Alex Jones talk radio, Rush Limbaugh type people. Now, where did the white supremacy stuff go? Here it is. People of every race, religion, and ethnicity can be fully and equally American. No one is saying they can't, except for the nuts in the white supremacy area. But then he lumps in bigotry with white supremacy in any form as blasphemy against the American creed. And when I read that line, my first thought was the title of a Sargon of Akkad video that came out, or that he published last year, that was the regressive left has become the religious right. They've begun using even the same words for things. bigotry or white supremacy, which is leftish for religious or bitter clingers to religion and bitter clingers to the good old days of America, are blasphemy, which is a religion thing. Blasphemy is a religious word. In regards to white supremacy specifically, there's not enough white supremacists in the country to elect someone to be a dog catcher in a southern town in Alabama. The only reason that white supremacy looks as big as the lefties and the new leftish speakers like ex-President Bush think that it is because the mainstream media gives their platforms over to these white supremacists. They talk about Richard Spencer. Anytime he goes anywhere, they give him a microscope, a megaphone, a magnifying glass, all that stuff to magnify his message, to give it as big a platform as possible so that they can say, look how evil this guy is. They don't even offer much refutation to the argument. They just want to blow it up, assume that everybody knows that it's wrong, which most of us do, and say, look at this, look how big this is, look how much of it there is when there's really not that much. If you took a penny and blew it up to the size of a card and said, look how big a penny is, with digital effects or whatever, pennies aren't actually that big. White supremacy is not actually as big as the media and the left wants you to think it is. Now, it's from here, they talk about Russia. Russia is a dead meme, guys. Come on. It's been a year. Mueller has moved on from even looking at Russia. Can we stop talking about Russia before someone gets hurt? It talks about Russia, and then they get into Obama. So they left out a line that I wanted to talk about that is picked up on by Newsmax. And that is that, where is it? Where is it? I'm looking for the full thing. Here it is. The division, said Bush, is a combination of wariness, frayed timbers, and forgetfulness, and the nation's discourse is degraded by casual cruelty. Now, we have here an expert on being the subject of casual cruelty talking now 12 years later, finally coming out and talking about casual cruelty. Why did you have to wait for 12 years to talk about this? Why has it taken you this long? I know that he's aiming this at the right. The whole rest of his speech was in leftish. This cannot be in real speak if the whole rest of it was in leftish. But this is a president that knows all about casual cruelty. This is a president that posed for a casual picture with a sitting senator who is in the act of destroying his reputation, and now he wants to lecture the right about engaging in casual cruelty. For 4 years, you had nothing to say about casual cruelty while you were under the microscope of casual cruelty. For 8 more years, you decided you didn't need to say anything about it. Only now that you've decided it can be pinned on the right, that the media is so obsessed and pearl-clutchingly out of their minds with exposing how quote-unquote hateful and bigoted and racist and white supremacist the right is. Do you decide now it's acceptable to come out and talk about casual cruelty? Excuse me if I think that you're not serious about this. It's too late. At this point, we've seen the leftist talking points that you're regurgitating. Now you want to talk about casual cruelty. We know that you don't really care about it. You couldn't take the effort to care when you were under the inferno of casual cruelty from the left. But now that it's turned to someone else, you think that it's safe to come out and talk about it. I don't buy that. He's talking to the right. He's not talking to the media and the left. And then we get to Obama's statements, and I guess there's just this one that I wanted to talk about. What we can't have is the same old politics of division that we have seen so many times before that dates back centuries. Some of the things we see now, we thought we put to bed. That's folks looking 50 years back. It's the 21st century, not the 19th century. First of all, the 19th century is more than 50 years back from the 21st. FYI. Second of all, it's only been 8 years since Americans were lectured with, vote this way or you're racist. And the election last year, I think, demonstrates that we have not forgotten about that. So you want to talk to us about the politics of division. You're the president that ran on, vote for me, I'm black. And you want to lecture everyone else, specifically the right, about the politics of division. Come on now. What is identity politics by definition? It's the dividing of people into superficial groups and making judgments about them based on these things, based on those characteristics. That is, by definition, division. Speaking of putting things to bed, we had put race to bed. You know, I wasn't alive to know in the 80s and 70s what things were like. The only things that I know is what I've been told and what I can see in movies. And I know that movies are not a realistic depiction of what life was like in those times. But I know, growing up, race was not a question. We didn't talk about race. One of my favorite television shows, while living at home, starred a full crew of black individuals. The only stars of the show were Will Smith, Carlton Banks, Philip Banks, Aunt Viv, Hillary, and Ashley, the Banks family. All black people. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Great show. I loved it. One of my favorites. Race didn't enter into my mind as being a thing that we needed to be concerned about. And it wasn't even really reborn, these things that you're talking about, until 2012. It was under Obama's watch that race became a big deal again. It was because of the Democrat Party that race became something that we had to blow up and talk about again. We had put these things to bed. No one was thinking about the race of the person standing next to them until 2008, 2012, and since 2012, really. We've been set back, according to Obama, 50 to 150 years. And I don't know what it's going to take to recover from it. I wish I had those answers. It's going to take people actually putting into practice what Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about, the speech that he's famous for. I have a dream that one day my children will grow up in a world where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And if you would like to live in that world, you can join us on the right in judging people based on the content of their character, not because of the words that they say. That's all that I have to say at this time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you'll leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. I'm uploading every single weekday without fail thus far. Until next time, have a great weekend, have a great evening, good night, and God bless.